I've been in the industry personally for just over 20 years now. It was actually 10 years ago, it's our 10th anniversary this year. I was actually working as an estate agent and I ran the property management lettings department there and was also a financial advisor. And it was really taking its toll, the stress, because at the time as well my father was very poorly and he'd been diagnosed with cancer and he was terminally ill. And with the stress of that and the job that I had at the time, I decided to take some time out to spend some time with my dad, which I'm really grateful that I did. And it was my dad. And Dad said, right, Ellen, you need to do it for yourself. You know, the mortgage isn't too expensive, kids are grown up and everything. Why don't we try this? So, and I was so scared. I said, no, Dad, I'm scared to death, scared of giving up, you know, a regular salary, company car, that sort of thing. But he pushed me on it and I thought, you know what, yeah, life's too short, let's try it. It's what I know, it's what I do, but I'll focus more on property management, on lettings, looking after landlords and tenants, than on the sales sides of things. So that's exactly how I started. We as L&K Lettings, our aim is to look after landlords and tenants. What we offer to landlords is a tailored service to meet an individual's needs. So it could be a landlord has decided to rent out his property perhaps because he's got a job abroad or because they're perhaps moving in with a partner. So it could be a landlord that's not necessarily wanting to be a landlord, or it may be a landlord that has used another agent and has decided they're not happy with them. Or it could just be an investor who has numerous properties and decided it's actually much easier paying somebody to look after it than it taking up all my time and me having to do it myself. So we get numerous landlords from different backgrounds. So we just decided we're a very personal, we're a family run business and we needed to tailor to individual needs. There was no two people out there. And exactly the same with a tenant. You know, a tenant, again, somebody could have split up from a partner, somebody might not be able to afford to actually buy a property. So it was looking at people's individual needs rather than just thinking, right, that's a landlord, that's a tenant. I'm very proud of us as a company. The majority of the business that we get is recommendations. I'm absolutely delighted. I think that's, you know, that's the best thing that anyone could say for us. Landlords and tenants, you know, generally people will phone me and say, Ellen, such a body has recommended you, you're doing a great job for them. A lot of our landlords have been with us 10 years now. A lot of our tenants have as well. Our tenants strongly recommend us. They know that if they report a repair, we'll deal with it. They know if they've got a problem with the rent paying it, they know they can actually talk to us. We are not just, you know, just somebody down the phone. We are sort of like approachable to them. And our job is to our landlords, and our landlords then, to look after our landlords means we look after their properties and we look after their tenants. And because of that, they come back time and time again. If I ever ask my landlords for help with anything, they're more like friends. They're really good. They all know there's the three of us here. It's a family run business. They get any one of us, and each one of us deals with that particular landlord or tenant because we know everything that goes on with both of them. Landlords, if they are going abroad, I don't think they realise just how much can be involved, and obviously that's where we come in because we can help with every aspect of that. The first thing, you know, is knowing their legal requirements. So for an example, if they don't know what an energy performance certificate is, that is a legal requirement, and it's like a surveyor going to the property to assess your property from an energy point of view. Again, a gas safety certificate is a legal responsibility, and also your tax. You know, if you're not aware of your tax liability, again, we can help with that. We can put you in touch with the tax office. We fill out all the forms as well for you if you need help with that, and then obviously you will get a number from the tax office which will help you assessing what your tax liability is. And also, how long are you going for? You know, you're going for 6 months, are you thinking longer? Are you looking for a short-term tenant, a long-term tenant? These things have to be factored in. Predominantly tenants perhaps need to think about what area they want to live in and why they want to live in that particular area. If there's a school, for example, if they've got a child or children, they may want to be in an encatchment area for a school. You may need to just have excellent public access, like to tram links, to the motorway network, that sort of thing. So it's looking, for example, if you went to somewhere that might be 10 minutes from the motorway, are you also taking into consideration peak time traffic? If you're going to work at 9 o'clock in the morning, you're going to be stuck in traffic for half an hour. So it's looking at the logistics as well. Lots of tenants may, for example, may want an apartment, but if you've never lived in an apartment before, you may just want to consider a 6-month tenancy because of a noise factor. You know, you've now got all of a sudden lots of neighbours where you may not have had neighbours before. But also, it's brilliant from a security point of view. You know, so if it is somebody living on their own, male or female, they may think, no, actually, I feel more secure living in an apartment. We also get people that have not realistically looked at the finances. So you may take on a property and not realise about council tax banding. You know, you may think, right, okay, yes, I can afford £400 a month rent, but what you've not taken into consideration is all your other bills, TV licence, council tax, like I've just suggested before. So I think it's important you look at your finances as well. And when we do credit searches and credit reports, we also look at your income stream and just to see what outgoings you have got. And again, first-time buyers who may have never lived together before, suddenly they're not giving mum £200 a month or whatever they're doing. They've now got bills of nearly £1,000 a month. So I think it's important we help and advise tenants with all aspects of taking a tenancy. We love landlord nightmares. There's not that many of them, I have to say, which is brilliant. So that does make the ones that have been sort of like stick out a little bit. And we did have one particular landlord, God rest his soul, he's not with us anymore, and he was absolutely fantastic. The poor love looked like nobody owned him. He walked into the office, 70-odd-year-old, you know, and he was an absolute diamond, a lovely, lovely man. And it turned out he owned streets and streets of houses. It wasn't just one or two, but his houses were diabolical. And I remember going to one particular house and just saying, please, can we have a new carpet in here? You know, I think it'll really help. And God love him, he went and got a new carpet, no problem at all. I went to check it, he'd hammered it down with nails. He'd cut it himself. It was absolutely atrocious. We said, there's a couple of slip slates on the roof, would you, do you want us to get somebody else to have a look at that for you? No, I will do it. He went up himself, 73 years old, on some ladders, nobody holding them, nobody helping him, and he replaced these slip slates. You know, he was an absolute gem, but, you know, a very, very, eventually a very good landlord with a bit of training. We had one particular young lady actually, and we'd decided she wasn't working out in this property. We were chasing her all the time for rent, and we just said, right, okay. We'd given her every help that we could, and she just wasn't sort of like accepting this out. So we decided it was time to go. So we'd served all the relevant notices, we'd got the court order and so on, and went to get this girl out of the property. The first thing I did though was, she knew we were going, like I say, everything was in place that should have been. We went to change the locks on the property, and I suddenly just had a thought, and I spoke to my contractor and I said, what number house are we in? So we both looked, and I changed the locks on somebody else's house. I did phone the police actually, and I said, look, I'm really sorry, I've just broken into somebody's house, and they were really lovely and very understanding. And actually, not long after that, the tenant's family had phoned to say the tenant had died. So we were really sorry, explained where all the tenant's stuff was, and 2 weeks later we saw the tenant. So she'd just been lying, she'd left all this stuff in the house. It was absolutely, not atrocious, but atrocious what she'd left. She'd left the child's toys and that sort of thing. But I told her she died, and she hadn't. So she was probably one of our worst tenants, we think. I think the best advice to give any buy-to-let investor is to know the property that you're buying first of all, and to make sure that you're getting it at the right price so that you get the right rental yield from it. So if you're buying a property, it's worth speaking to a financial advisor, of course, because you need to know how much your mortgage amount is going to be, and will the rent cover that amount, because most financial institutions these days want to make sure, of course, that the rent does cover the mortgage. And also looking as well at over how many years. A lot of investors do tend to look at a 10-year, that's the 10-year period, it's what they're looking at buying a property over. So of course, if it's taking you over 10 years, perhaps then you're looking at 15 years, it's really important to know. In my opinion, I think it's as good now as it's always been. I think the good thing about now is that the house prices have actually steadied, and they're a bit more realistic now. A few years ago, unfortunately, a lot of the buy-to-let investors bought properties when they were at the highest and unfortunately didn't get a good return, whereby at the moment I think it's a really good market. They're realistically priced now. So if you're buying a house at the right price for your investment, say over 10 years, then that's the perfect time now to be doing so. I think, you know, a lot of people bought off plan, a lot of people bought at auctions, because that was just sort of the market it was in. So I think now we are far more cautious, which we should be, you know, and you go and have a look at the house, you go and have a look at the area, you know, you make sure you see through. You know, a newly painted house might be hiding a multitude of sins. It might need a damp-proof course. So I think we're being more cautious now, which is the right thing to do. But I think as far as the buy-to-lets, and unfortunately repossessions are up again, you know, so bad news for a lot of people, good news for investors, because they're getting these houses, of course, at discounted prices. You know, so in my professional opinion, I think it's as good a time now as it's always been.